Hi everyone, welcome to Gadgets with Gurman. Today we have a really fun episode. We're going to be talking about Apple's latest announcements. Earlier this week at WWDC, their annual June Developers Conference, this year's in San Jose, they introduced iOS 11, macOS High Sierra, new versions of the software for the Apple TV and the Apple Watch, many new Mac products, but the star of the show was this device right here. This is the HomePod. This is the Siri-based speaker, the Amazon Echo Google Home competitor that we've been talking about a while here on this show and as well as in our stories on the Bloomberg website and the Bloomberg terminal. So today, I wanted to do sort of a deep dive on the HomePod after the announcement and ahead of its launch later this year, sort of get into the meaty details and my experience seeing it at the conference, and also want to take some questions and give answers on anything you've seen at WWDC, any questions you have about the market, the HomePod, Apple's latest software announcements, or the next iPhone. So please send your questions in through Twitter, Facebook, and we'll answer them over the course of the show. So this is the HomePod, and let's zoom in here because I have a video that I actually took at the event after, and I tweeted this, but for anyone who hasn't seen it, this is just a quick hands-on video of the HomePod in action. This is the white one. There's also a space gray one. I'm not sure why they call it space gray. It looks more black in person or a slate color. And you can see at the top here that it has like this LED array to show you the waveform, to show you how it looks, to show you that it's actively taking commands. This is the black one, the space gray one right here. It sort of looks like a smaller Mac Pro. And let's go to this spec right here, and it shows some of the components from it. This is from Apple's website. So what's really interesting here is that it has an A8 chip, and that's the processor that they actually included in the iPhone 6. And let's zoom back out here and take a closer look at it. So this A8 chip was introduced with the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus back in 2014. It's really interesting that they're actually putting this somewhat of a computer chip inside of a speaker. In my opinion, this shows that this thing is going to get much more powerful than Apple has indicated so far. So far, they said that it's going to have integration with some basic Siri commands, like getting the weather, your calendar appointments, but I really foresee this becoming a more of an all-purpose device, sort of like the Amazon Echo, which has a bunch of skills, so this would have lots of third-party Siri commands. I can imagine, and they haven't introduced this, at some point there will be some sort of SDK, a software development kit for people to be able to tap into the product, do more, maybe call an Uber, call a Lyft, access banking apps and third-party to-do apps. I think that will make it a much stronger device and more of a platform itself. We saw a few weeks ago this new Andy Rubin made, the co-founder of Android, this home device with its own ambient OS. I think we're going to see more of that on the OS front for this hardware. What else do they have in here? It has this mesh fabric around it. It's sort of a soft material. Apple says it makes it sound better. And on this side, you can see that it talks about the tweeter array, the microphone array, and the high exertion Apple-designed woofer. Now, what you see on that side is basically the special sauce of this device. It's why you want this device. It's why Apple's selling it. They're not marketing it as a Siri-driven speaker. More so, they're marketing it as a really high-quality audio system, sort of like a Sonos that happens to have Siri. In my opinion, I don't know how great of an idea that is. It really should, in my opinion, be marketed more as a rival to the Amazon Echo, but more so it's being positioned as a rival to the Sonos or those speakers in the $300 to $500, $600 range. Maybe it's because they haven't perfected Siri as of yet. They're waiting for the Siri software and service to really stack up to the competition before marketing it in that regard. But we still have ways to go. This thing doesn't come out until December, which is 5 or 6 months from now. We'll see when that rollout happens, and it'll be interesting to see how they market it between now and then. But this 6 microphone array is one less than the amount of microphones on the Amazon Echo, which has 7. The Echo Show has 8. Honestly, between 6, 7, and 8, I don't think it's going to make a big difference. When Apple was demonstrating it on stage, they were talking about how even if loud music is playing from it, you could say, "Hey Siri," and it would actually still wake up the speaker and you'd be able to change your song or do some quick Siri commands. The tweeter array and the woofer is really what's responsible for lighting the thing up, making it sound good, playing music, the audio quality. Backstage, according to people who were in some of the briefings afterwards, they were saying that they positioned this against the Sonos and the Amazon Echo, and some people were saying that it sounded much better than those devices. We'll have to see when we get it on the show, and obviously we'll have the thing when it comes out in December, and we'll do a bigger deep dive into it. And that's funny, actually, me saying Hey Siri lit up Hey Siri on my phone. But we do have some questions coming in here. Why is the HomePod only coming out 6 months from now? Do you think they'll add more capabilities to it, like an airport maybe? That's a very good question. Why is it coming 6 months from now? I just don't think it's ready. They've been working on this for several years. When we first wrote about this almost a year ago, we said that Apple has been working on it for already 2 years. So clearly, in terms of the audio technologies and whatnot, they've been really working on this for a while. It's very clear from their announcement that they haven't really shared a ton. They shared basics, like about the chip and the fabric and the design, the woofer, and the $350 base price, which we'll get more into later. But they didn't share anything on that SDK. I think between now and then, we'll see more functionality coming out of it. I think they're going to announce more. Maybe there's some special sauce inside the machine that they haven't announced yet that they're going to debut in the iPhone 8 first. Maybe that AI chip that we talked about in a previous report, Apple moving stuff from the CPU and the GPU to this dedicated chip to enhance AI processing. Maybe we'll see more of that related to the acoustics. So I think there's going to be a lot more. In terms of the airport question, we reported several months ago that Apple disbanded and stopped making airports. It tore apart its airport team, moved them to other divisions. Is it possible they would put an airport product into this? Maybe. It makes perfect sense. Will they do it? We don't know yet. Something that I was thinking about that's actually really interesting, we reported a couple of years ago that for this year's iPhone, or as soon as this year's iPhone, Apple is planning to integrate sort of short-range wireless charging. That means being able to wirelessly charge the phone without it actually being on a mat, but maybe a couple feet away. Wouldn't it be really interesting if they put that device, that charging mechanism inside the HomePod so it can charge your phone from the HomePod? Maybe you put your phone down a few feet away from it, so you're not only streaming music from it and other content from it, but also the HomePod charging the phone. We don't know if that's coming, but I personally think that would be a cool addition in the future. Another question coming in here, does it play TV sound so I can watch movies with it? That's a good question. I saw a few people talking about this device as they would want to add maybe one or two of them around their TV, their big screen in the living room or in the bedroom, and use it to play audio. Will it be able to play audio from a TV? Well, it doesn't have inputs, or at least we don't see any on here yet, but it does have AirPlay 2, which is Apple's upcoming wireless protocol for streaming music. So if the TV or the device is able to support AirPlay, I think it's pretty likely that it would be able to stream that audio through the HomePods. It would be interesting to see if you can connect them to an Apple TV. And given that Apple is really big on connecting all its devices within its ecosystem, I'd be shocked if there wasn't a future Apple TV update that allowed the TV itself via the set-top box to support the HomePods as a speaker system. I think that would actually be pretty neat. Do you think we'll see some big iOS exclusives for the iPhone 8? That's another really good question. Every year when they come out with new iPhone hardware, they usually save a few key features for the iPhone 8. I think this year's iOS update for the new iPhone hardware is going to be the most significant in years in terms of exclusives for the new hardware. Why do I say that? Well, we already reported that there's going to be some new hardware features, such as that edge-to-edge glass design, the integrated home button into the screen. So from that perspective, they're going to have to redesign and tweak the operating system to a certain extent in order to support this new iPhone, support a phone without a home button. So yes, I think we're going to see exclusives there. We also saw the introduction of ARKit this week, a platform for developers to take advantage of AR. Well, they're going to have to do something that's Apple branded in order to push this platform forward. Wouldn't it be interesting, wouldn't it be cool if there was some sort of new AR-infused camera software on the new iPhone that took advantage of this? We already reported in our March story about augmented reality being Apple's next big thing, that they're planning, in addition to a pair of AR super lightweight glasses, iPhone features for the camera app that are AR related. So maybe we'll see those as soon as with the iPhone 8. I think that would be a really interesting addition and another piece to Apple's AR story. Another one here, does the HomePod sync with Spotify? I think this raises a larger question, a very good one. What other audio apps will take advantage of it? Well, out of the box, you're going to be able to access Apple Music with Siri through the cloud. So you won't actually have to stream music from the phone to your HomePod if it's Apple Music. It'll be built in, sort of like Amazon Prime Music is built into the Alexa speakers, and sort of like the Google Music service, Google Play Music is built into the Google Home speaker. So I think we're not going to see Spotify or any of the competitors built right into the HomePod. That wouldn't really make sense from Apple's perspective, where it wants to juice up Apple Music subscriptions. But I don't think there's anything that would potentially stop Spotify, Google Play Music, other services, maybe Tidal, from integrating AirPlay into their app so they can stream music from the phone itself to the HomePods. I'd be surprised if those players didn't add support, especially Spotify, because Spotify doesn't really have any reason to be tied to a single platform. They don't sell their own speaker yet, maybe, so it would make sense that they would want to get their platform and their music service into as many hands as possible. So I'd be shocked if they didn't open up AirPlay support or AirPlay 2 support for the HomePod when that thing hits the market in December. Another one coming here. Can it be used to speak to my TV or Mac? That's a good question. Basically, they have the Echo Dot Amazon does, where you can connect the Dot to any device in order to really make it a voice-enabled Alexa service device. Someone's asking, can they really do the same thing with the HomePod? They haven't said, but it could make sense if you have a device that doesn't support Siri and you want to connect the HomePod to it, maybe a louder speaker system, to see if you can make that a Siri-enabled system as well. There's people with really big, thousands of dollars worth of home audio equipment. So it could make sense if they want to make HomePod a conduit to making those Siri enabled as well. I don't think that would really stop Apple, because that would make people continuing to buy the device anyways. It would just allow it to have another use case. Another question. Do you think Apple will add further Siri features in future updates? It was interesting. So last year they opened up Siri to third-party developers. So I don't think Apple is going to add many of its own in-house features over time, maybe a few a year. This year they introduced translating, which is basically like you can open Siri, you can say, how do I say such and such in Spanish or Japanese, and it would translate it and speak it to you on the fly. So I think we'll see like some sort of incremental features like that year after year. But mostly, like with apps on the platform, the iOS platform that is, they're going to rely on developers. So I think we're going to see more of that. This year they added a few more app types. They added third-party to-do list apps, and they added support for banking apps and a few other types of Siri-based services. I think we're going to see more of those in the future. But certainly the biggest thing here and the biggest missing piece, in my opinion, from this HomePod announcement, especially given that it was at the developers conference, was no indication, and they've been very coy about this, of a software development kit, an SDK, so third parties can access the HomePod and Siri on there. They have to do it. It really makes no sense that it wasn't announced unless there's something they want to introduce more in September when they launch the iPhone 8. But one of the big features with the Alexa service are these skills, where they have hundreds, if not thousands, of third parties integrating into their devices to make them a better product. Likewise, the Google Home has actions. They announced that last December and rolled it out over the course of this year, and they announced more functionality at that for their Google I/O announcement in May. So I think it's a no-brainer for Apple to add, and I'd really be surprised, as much as I'm surprised they didn't announce it, if they weren't working on this. Maybe we'll see an announcement later in the year, sort of before the Apple Watch came out about this. I'm hopeful for that. Another question, can I make phone calls with it? Certainly you'll be able to make calls with it if you loop in your iPhone speaker. They'll probably add that. That seems like another no-brainer. Why is it more expensive than the Echo or the Google Home? And do you think they will release new sizes and colors? Those are very good questions. So let's actually jump into this pricing matrix that we put together right here. So the HomePod, $350, the Amazon Echo, $180, and the Google Home right now is on sale for $110. You can see this is about double the price of the Echo, right? And it is almost 3 times the price of the Google Home. So why is it so much more expensive? Well, Apple's saying the sound quality is really what makes it more expensive. Of course, they need to retain their margins, but there's also higher end technology in there, the designed woofer and the acoustics and whatnot, this LED array and whatnot. So I think that they're really trying to charge more because they're trying to get in line of the pricing of a Sonos speaker or other speakers, combining the smarts and whatnot. Do I think it's a high price? Yes, I do. I think it's a high price, and that makes it really difficult to compete with the Amazon Echo and the Google Home. And obviously, Amazon Echo, they have the Echo Dot, which is $40 or $50, and there's people buying, 5 or 6 of them to put throughout their home. So I think they're playing on a different level here. That's why maybe they're also focusing more on the music quality rather than on the Siri functionality itself. We'll see. Do I think it'll sell? Yes, of course. It's an Apple product. It's integrated into the ecosystem. People are going to buy them. I'm certainly going to want one in my home. So I think it does have a big market, but obviously that price is getting some heat from people who are comparing it directly to the Echo and the Google Home. Let's see, we have some more questions coming in here. We have the question about new materials and sizes and colors. So we had this story back in September about this Siri product, the HomePod, going to prototyping. And Apple was actually testing multiple sizes. They were testing this one, this was a smaller one, and they had a much larger one that they were testing. Will they introduce a larger one or maybe a smaller one, this one and the small one in the future? Maybe. I wouldn't rule that out. I'm sure Apple wouldn't rule that out either. But for now, this is what they got, and based on people who've heard it and played some music on it, it does sound pretty good. Additional colors, well, they have the white and the, let's look at this video again so you can see. They have the white one here and the space gray one. Apple doesn't really do many other colors besides white and space gray. They have a gold color option and a red color option. I honestly don't think a speaker would look good in red or gold or rose gold or jet black or matte black and whatnot. Just the regular black, the space gray, what they call it, is, it looks fine. So maybe some other wild color in the future, green, blue, whatnot. But right now, I think the black and white, they're keeping it simple. And I'm glad they're offering two colors. I didn't anticipate that. So something for, everyone. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the acoustics technology here. So basically, you can put the HomePod down in one end of the room, and it has sensors in it, so it can measure the room, so it knows how to adjust the volume on the fly. It creates this effect of virtual surround sound. People who've heard it say it sounds really good, and they have a really cool demo on their website where they sort of show the effect. Another question coming in here. I use Apple Music on my Sonos system. Do you think the new HomePod will work with an existing Sonos system? Apple is pretty closed in terms of its hardware integrating with other hardware, at least initially when a product comes out. I would be surprised if they opened up direct connectivity between the HomePod and the Sonos from the get-go, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's something they opened up eventually. They haven't given any indication of that one way or another, and I'm sure we'll have that question answered between now and December, and I'm sure they're going to have another keynote where they discuss this in more detail. Remember in 2014, in September, alongside the iPhone 6, they introduced the Apple Watch, and then they had a whole other keynote in March, 6 months later, discussing more in-depth pricing, release time frames, and additional features and developer integrations. So I would be super surprised if they didn't have a similar setup in the future to talk more about that and answer some more of those questions. How does the sound compare to Bose or Sonos? Well, when they were doing the demos against the Sonos, people were saying it sounded better than the Sonos. I don't believe they compared it to a Bose, so I can't answer that question. This is a really good one. I was interested in knowing this as well. So how is it powered? How is the battery life? Well, it's actually powered directly through AC, and you can sort of see that. You can see the AC line going through there. And I think that the cable in the space gray one is a matching space gray color. Yep, it is. You can kind of see that there. So yes, it's through the power, so the battery life doesn't really matter. That's an interesting question because the iPod Hi-Fi, which was sort of introduced with a similar pitch years ago, almost 11 years ago now, in 2006, before being discontinued in less than 18 months, which Apple's hoping to fare better this time around, that could run on batteries, regular batteries that you buy at the grocery store and pop in there, or through AC power. This is AC only. This is not a boombox style type of thing where you're going to want to carry around on your skateboard or anything like that. This is a home device. Some more questions coming in here. How are the quality of the materials that are used to make the HomePod speaker? I didn't actually touch it, so I can't speak to how the materials felt, but judging by what Apple usually does and judging by the higher than average price point for this class of product, if we're talking about the voice-driven speakers, I think that it's probably pretty good. Some more stuff here that I wanted to talk about. So back to this pricing question. Should you get a HomePod versus an Amazon Echo or a Google Home? Well, if you're someone in the Apple ecosystem, I think the HomePod is something that you should seriously wait for and look at. You can deeply integrate Siri. You can deeply integrate your music if you're on an Apple Music subscription. If you're someone running Android, you might want to look at the Google Home because it really taps into the Google applications and all the Google services that they call Actions when it's tapped in through Assistant and the Google Home. The Amazon Echo, it's added some more Apple integration in recent weeks. They actually announced iCloud calendar integration for adding calendar appointments a few weeks ago. But again, it's heavily drawn across platforms. You can connect Spotify to it. So I think the Amazon Echo is actually a really great device. It's super popular. They sold millions of them so far. It's definitely probably more popular than the Google Home. But if you're someone who's diehard in the Apple ecosystem and you want a bit better quality in terms of sound, you might want to look at the HomePod. And I know we're also going to have the Amazon Echo Show on the show in a few weeks when it starts shipping to customers, and we'll have more detail on that. That's the new Echo with the louder speakers and the touchscreen. And we'll talk a little bit about the benefits having a screen or not. The HomePod, of course, does not have a screen, just this LED light array and some volume controls on the top. And again, this thing goes on sale in December. So a few other things they introduced at the conference were new Macs and new iPads. And For those looking forward to next week, we will have the new 10.5-inch iPad Pro on this show next week. We'll be showing off that device along with the new smart keyboard and talking a little bit about the iPad enhancements with iOS 11. So we're looking forward to that. Thanks for tuning in. This was Gadgets with Gurman, and we'll see you next week.